What's up, guys? Um, I wanted to talk about obviously what you're seeing right now, PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale, and what potential a sequel could have. Now, this has been something that's been on my mind since the first one, because I ain't gonna lie, I loved the first one. Yeah, it had its problems. There's many games that do, but it was still one of my favorite games. So yeah, first off, I want to start by saying what characters do I think would fit perfectly in this game? Now, obviously, there's some obvious ones, you know, uh, the new Kratos or the newer Kratos from God of War 2018 and Ragnarok. Um, we got Ellie from The Last of Us 2, and we got some other newcomers, like Jin from Ghost of Tsushima, Astrobot, um, and we can have even older characters come back, like Jack and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, and let's not forget, like, people like Aloy and, from Horizon, stuff like that. Um, and I just think it would be a very good game if they do it right. They just need to do it right. Now, the first one had its problems. A lot of people had the problem. Well, a lot of people's problem with the first one was they say that, roster, they say they didn't like, you know, your objective in the game, which personally, me, I liked it. This is something that I've always said ever since I played the first one. I appreciate what they were doing for the game when it comes to gameplay. They didn't go the same platform genre, platform fighter genre route where it's like you got to knock everyone off the stage. They decided to do their own unique thing, and I think that was something very special. When you played All Stars, right? It didn't play like Smash. It didn't play like any of those other games. Yes, it had the essence of those other games, but it didn't play like it. When you hopped in a match in All Stars, your objective was totally different from like a Smash or any of the other games that, you know, that's how they play with the health bars and knocking off the stage. It was different. And I appreciated that a lot, from Superbot Entertainment. They decided to do their own thing, and I think it worked. Now, obviously, the majority of people didn't think it worked. There was a lot of people that didn't like that, but I think it was fine. So if they do if they obviously do ever make a sequel, I do wish they brought that back, but as like a classic mode. They could bring it back, but it could be like a classic mode, and it could be something where it's like it's not the main way you play. They can actually bring the health bars from like the health bars in from like Smash and places like that. They can bring the traditional way you play platform fighters. They can bring that into the game, but I would like for them to actually have a classic mode, where you play like how you used to in the first game. Um, and it's like I feel like the game would have to be something where it's like I honestly don't think it should be a live service game. I think it should be where it's like you pay a base price, you pay $40 to $50, $60 or whatever, and it comes with all the characters, right? And obviously they're gonna want to add DLC, so it's like basically do how they used to do it back in with the first game, where it's like they dropped it in packs with the new maps and new characters and stuff. I would honestly prefer that way of them making it. Live service games are a dime a dozen. They're kind of hard to really capture a lot of people because they drip feed you stuff. They drip feed you costumes, money, or in-game currency or whatever. Another thing I want to talk about is I honestly think they should bring back the idea of mixing and mashing different franchises maps. You know how they had that in the first game where they had different franchises and from each game, and they would mix the maps together and combine them to make one map. I thought that was very cool, very unique, and they definitely need to bring that back. They have to, man. They have to. That's one thing that I think they definitely need to bring back. Also, they should bring back, well, not bring back, but one thing I feel like was underrated about the first game is the music. I feel like the music was very high tempo, especially the opening song. It was very high tempo. It really got you in the mood to want to play the game. It was very high tech, high tempo, just type of music. And I liked it about that. I loved it, actually. I thought that was a really cool way to go about the soundtracks of the game. And I'll tell you right now, if you look up, soundtracks of the game, from OSTs or whatever, or soundtracks of the games, all of them sound pretty good. Like the music in the game is very good. I think it's very decent. It's very good music. I think if they do make a potential sequel, they should remix a lot of the older ones and add new ones, of course, but they should remix a lot of the old music from the first one and just add remixes to it, while adding new music, obviously, of course. You don't want just the same music from the first one. But I think they should do that too. And a lot of people don't talk about that. When All Stars came out, right? Back when it came out, 2012, a lot of people weren't warming up to the idea of another platform fighter, right? Like back then, people wanted more Smash. People wanted more characters in Smash. People wanted their dream characters for Smash. And it's different now because we got Smash Ultimate. So much people got their dream characters. Obviously, some didn't, but so much did. And right now, in this climate for platform fighter genre games, it's still very hard to crack. Don't get me wrong, because, Multiverses is a perfect example of that. We all know that. Rest in peace to that game. It was a great game. But yeah, it's still a hard genre to crack, but it's easier than what it was back then, right? Sony is in a much better position in terms of their IP. So much more people recognize the IP. And I feel like right now would be the time to do it, especially since, they're looking for more multiplayer style games. Now, I don't know if it should be live service. Like I said, I don't think it should be live service, but if it is, I would take that. If it is, I would take that. It's not what I would prefer, but it's something that I would take, if that's all we can get. Also, they would probably be able to add Spider-Man, the Insomniac Spider-Man. I know they don't technically own the character, but they had those ties with Marvel, and they have Insomniac, and they have specifically that version of Spider-Man. They can add him in it. It would be fucking crazy to see Spider-Man, that version of Spider-Man, and maybe Miles inside a PlayStation All-Stars potential sequel. It would be insane, bro. It would be crazy. That's what I'm saying. It has a lot of potential. And I know a lot of people didn't like the first one, and a lot of people did. But I honestly think the time is now. And I know people have been wanting it for years. Myself included, I've wanted it for years. And there's people that didn't. But honestly, it really is a good time for it now. Heck, they can make it a launch title for PS6. I really feel like it's a good time to make it. And honestly, Sony should look into it. I mean, if they were willing to spend how much, $400 million on Concord, and honestly, Concord, personally, I didn't think it was that terrible of a game. But if they were willing to put that much money in that game, then they could definitely put money into like a sequel for All Stars 2. And also, I do want to talk about that. I know a lot of people are going to say that licensing is a big issue, and I get it. That's very expensive. It's time consuming, to get those licenses for certain characters. But, because I know they're going to want to add third party characters, right? Obviously, the characters they own are going to make it. We all know that. But, for platform fighters, you want to see characters that you never thought would be in this game, in a crossover game. And that's when, third party characters come in, and that's going to be like licensing and stuff. But it still can be done. They're in a better position than they were back then. They have so much more connections because how well the PS5 and PlayStation has been doing in general. And I think they could do it. I think they could really pull it off. Man, they just have to lock in, to be honest. They just have to lock in. With that being said, I think that's a good amount of what I wanted to talk about. If you guys want me to make another video talking about more of it, then I will. Just let me know in the comments. And see you guys later. Peace.